Hey, howdy, hey, folks. It's Mrs. Johnson with the Agro Wisdom Channel. We are talking today about food wastage because I've talked so much about the production pipelines in the last 2 weeks or so and we've very briefly touched on the conversation of food wastage that I figured I would elaborate a bit more, give you some information, some factoids, um, and we can learn some about why in agriculture it is such a big deal, um, why food wastage is such a big deal in agriculture when we are in the business of selling you food. Why do we care when food gets wasted? Like, what's the point in agriculture? Why do we care? Um, and so we'll jump right into what exactly food wastage is. Food wastage, on that left-hand side, is the term we use for all types of food lost and waste. So how food gets lost in we separate how food gets destroyed in the agricultural system into food loss and food waste. Sometimes, um, and food wastage is the general term for the whole spiel. Food wastage talks about that food getting destroyed somewhere through the process overall. Sometimes it's also abbreviated as FLW, food loss and waste instead. Um, So, what exactly is the difference between food loss and food waste? Well, food loss happens in the first step of post harvest production. Food waste happens in the second part of post harvest production. Food loss can happen prior to harvest, but usually it's during harvest, at least. Food loss happens when food is destroyed before it has a chance to be eaten. So, maybe a shipment container of apples going down I-5 in California toppled over, and now all the apples are inedible. Wow, sucks, right? That was tons and tons of apples probably that could have been eaten, and now they can't because they're all over the side of the road. Food waste happens when food is thrown away once it has a chance to be eaten. So if it's sitting in the back of the grocery store and no one pulls it out to put it on the shelves and it just rots in the back, which occasionally happens, um, that's considered food waste and not food loss because you could have had a chance to buy it. You could have had a chance to eat whatever rotted in the back of Safeway or Dollar General or, whatever other place sells food. So let's talk about the numbers behind where food gets lost or wasted. Um, in the farm stage, 11% ish gets lost. That's considered production. After harvest, about 8% gets lost in handling and storage. Processing loses about 1%. And altogether, that is 12 plus 18. So about 20% of all food gets lost because it hasn't had a chance to be eaten. Before it has a chance to be eaten, about 20% of food gets lost. Um, and then stores lose about 6%. That's also just distribution and marketing. Those two places lose about 6%. Homes and restaurants lose about 10% in consumption, in the consumption stage. So altogether, food waste loses about 16%. Food loss loses about 20%, um, which altogether, that's 36% of food gets lost. Um, and I do have sources on this at the end, so I will show you those if you want to deep dive down a rabbit hole and look at where these numbers are coming from. This one was so information heavy, I left the sources on. But usually I just omit the sources and say, believe me, good luck. I did have sources. Didn't tell you. But I will give sources this time. So, our next thing, we're going to talk really quick about the food pipeline, post harvest production pipeline. Talked about that in my last video, how it goes from producer to consumer, um, with the pre processing, transporting, storage, processing, packing, marketing. We've heard those words before in the last couple slides, right? But this is where the original food pipeline, post harvest production pipeline kind of comes from. Um, is this cartoon right here? I don't know who exactly did it. It's a photo on the internet that circulates sometimes. Um, but broken grain, spilling, bruising, heat, frost, rain, humidity, insects, molds, bacteria, um, over ripening, um, excessive trimming, polishing, contamination, unsafe foods, quality losses. Those are things, all examples, good examples of what we're trying to prevent. And in post harvest protection, things that we don't want to happen when we produce food to sell things. But these are things that cause food wastage. And so, really quick, now that we've talked about some of the reasons and some of the numbers behind US food wastage, let's talk about this on a global scale. Food waste versus food loss, right? And this is another infographic that I stole from the internet. There's enough food to feed everyone on the planet, but a third of all food produced for humans is either wasted or lost, right? We came up with that about 36-ish percent, 33, 36%, about a third. Um, and right, everything in blue is a high income country. Um, High income, I don't know if that's still the correct, politically correct term, but developed, high income, all similar words. High income, developed countries do a lot of food wastage. So, and remember, food waste um, happens when edible food is discarded once it has the chance to be eaten. So, sorry, US, uh, our consumers just throw away food, apparently. Much more, right? The average American wastes about 20 pounds of food each month, um, whereas in lower income countries, less developed countries, so Africa, Asia, parts of Latin America, food loss is more important, uh, right? Food loss happens because food is damaged or destroyed before it gets to the point where it can be eaten by someone. Um, and we can talk a bit about why developed countries and undeveloped countries, less developed countries, high income countries, low income countries, whatever you would like to call them, why there's such stark differences in the agricultural industry. Right? Because, for example, farmers in Africa lose about 40% of all the food they grow. Why? Because their agricultural technology is different. Because they are still subsisting on farming. They are farming in drastically different ways because of their income and their development, whatever their level of income and development has a culture, society, what have you, is starkly different than what we see in the developed world, what we see in high income worlds. Um, and so let's jump into what all can be done. What can we do, right? In terms of fixing this, not only has a local level in, California, US, Nebraska, wherever you are, right, on a local level and a global level. What can we do? Um, on this left-hand side, producers increase crop variety, improve food waste practices, right? Try to mitigate food waste as much as you can. Find ways to use food that can't be sold anymore. Grow more than one thing. So then you kind of diversify. Communities in general make food waste goals, create food waste prevention programs, reduce government and social standards for food quality, right? Some of those things, particularly reducing standards for food quality um, might sound scary, but making food waste prevention plans, making food waste goals, things like that might sound a bit easier. Consumers themselves, right? So me, I eat food. You probably eat food if you're not a vampire. Right? What can we do if it's just little old me, right? And I want to do something. Plan your meals and eat your leftovers. So eat appropriately for, make food appropriately, order food appropriately for what you're going to eat, and eat more imperfect foods. You don't have to buy the straightest carrot in the store, and you don't have to. Carrots are carrots, man. Like, it doesn't matter if they're weirdly shaped. Carrots are still going to taste good in a stew. You can make, potatoes might be all lumpy and weird in the store, but if you're making potato soup that's like nice and soft, and like food processed, like you're making potato soup, man. Do you really need to have the most perfect potatoes for potato soup? Maybe not. Increase variety of our food, right? So if you eat a lot of pork, beans, and rice, maybe you incorporate more vegetables and diversify your palate. And eat this might sound kind of funky, but eating less high waste products like meat, fish, dairy, eggs, those are things that take a lot of energy and a lot of resources to create. Um, and so when done right, they are not really wasteful. But particularly in the US, when it comes to meat, fish, and dairy, um, not a lot of us eat oddball cuts. Um, Someone's calling me. It's not important. Um, Not a lot of us eat oddball cuts. Like, a lot of us like to eat steaks and ground meat. Um, but not a lot of us like to use cheek meat. Not a lot of us like to use tail meat or eat liver, eat heart. Those are things that, might be a little too yucky for you. And in particularly US, those are things that go to waste because we can't sell them. And so either incorporating the things that usually get wasted in those products or eating less of those wasteful products is helpful. Um, and then some fast facts for you. 1.7 million square miles of agricultural land is used to grow all the food that is lost or wasted globally. That is more land than India. I looked it up because 1.7 million square miles is hard to comprehend. It's bigger than India. 25% of global freshwater supply grows food that is wasted. So we could save water issues are also a thing we could talk about here. Now, today, though, we're talking about food wastage, but they're related. Now, some fast facts. We're going to talk some facts now. I got distracted and wrote down a bunch of facts. And I'll read them to you. The amount of food wasted can feed over double all the hungry people in the world. The definition of hungry people is, we can get into it later. Developing countries lose most of their food in production and handling and storing stages. We talked about that. Developed countries waste most of their food during consumption stages. We also talked about that. And whether you want to call them developed or high income. I don't remember the most appropriate term for that currently. The US creates the most food wastage in the world. So, hello. United States of America, we're a problem. We have lots of problems, but food wastage is one of them. U.S. households waste an average of $975 of food annually, and that is enough to feed a standard household for a month. So we're paying for 13 months out of the year of food when if we just on average, I'm a data nerd. We'll talk about data at some point. $1 trillion, that's 12 zeros, is worth of food is wasted every year. And I think that's globally. Might be in the US. I don't remember. Look at my sources. It'll tell you. So then, how do we prevent food wastage? The EPA, and I think USDA maybe, has actually come out with some cool infographics, right? Of what's the best way to do these things, right? So we want to, this one you read from left to right in a circle. Wasted food scale. And this talks specifically about the environmental impacts of wasted food and rating things on an environmental impacts standpoint. You prevent wasted food. Produce, buy, serve only what is needed. If you can't do that, donate it, upcycle it. If you can't do that, feed it. Feed it to animals or put it back in the ground. And just leave it in the field that it came from. And I did data on that. How's my undergraduate research? We'll talk about it. Compost, anaerobic digestion. Those are very similar processes we'll probably talk about here at some point. And then anaerobic digestion or applying it to the land, right? Those are things similar to composting and digestion. Right? But specifically, this one, you're either breaking down food to create energy instead of also in a soil amendment, you're just using it to create energy, or applying it directly to land. And please, at all costs, according to this infographic, do not send food down the drain in the landfill or incinerate it. Whether or not you're recovering energy from it, please just don't. It's bad for the environment. So like do literally anything else aside from throw it away, is basically what they're saying. Now, this is another one in a different format that I thought might be helpful to look at. And this is the EPA of food recovery hierarchy. So they have, rather than going, hey, do these steps in this order, they've actually made it a hierarchy instead, with the biggest top of the triangle being like the thing that has the most impact, most positive impact, and also is the most preferred, and the bottom being smaller, aka having less impact, less good impact, more bad impact, and also is less preferred. Source reduction, reduce the volume of food generated that is going to waste. Feed hungry people with imperfect foods, extra foods. If you have extra food in your pantry that you know you're not going to eat because you bought it and didn't like it, and you bought 3 cans of it, go give it to somebody that's going to eat it. Specifically hungry people here, I think as long as it gets eaten, I think you're good. As long as it doesn't go to waste. But hungry people using food banks, soup kitchens, housing shelters, those are good places. Those are 2 birds, 1 stone. Feed animals with it. Divert your food scraps to animal food. So if you eat a lot of meat and you have puppies at home, maybe you feed them table scraps. If you have chickens at home, maybe you give them table scraps. And that is better than letting it be industrially used, right? Some cities and things are moving towards industrial composting and things of that nature, to get fuel conversion, use waste oils, get energy out of food, that is being donated to compost commercially. Um, and honestly, that's more effective than just composting things yourself, because with a bigger location, you can be more efficient at composting things, at converting things to energy, things like that. But if you don't, like me, I live in a very rural, small town, middle of nowhere, and there is no industrial um, use drop off for food, I think, anywhere in the next 3 hours of me. Um, and so industrial use is not helpful. I could feed hungry people, I could feed animals, or I could compost, or I could throw it away. It has a consumer. Those are things that I can do. Uh, and last but not least, we've talked about this. This is obvious at this point, I feel. Don't throw it away. Like, please don't. That eat it or something. It's essentially what these things are saying is like, hey, do anything but throw it away, please. Um, and so this is my works cited. Um, yeah. So think about it. When you eat your next meal, maybe consider thinking about the way you eat things and how you waste food, and maybe this has helped somehow. So good luck. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a lovely day. Um, and I will see you next week, maybe. I'll see you soon, whenever you decide to stop back by. Okay, bye.